Call to order the Economic Development Committee meeting for September 18th, 2019. Roll call. Mark Eastman's here. Jim Boothby.
Is here.
John Paul Lalonde.
Here.
Rob Carmichael.
Here.
John Warble's absent. Frank Dunbar's absent. Daphne Nair's absent. And Ron Russell's here. Continue review of the update of the 2008 Economic Development Strategy. Rich?
Yes, so I sent an email out to everyone, and you can see it's on the screen, and I will take further notes from the computer. But you can see that to help get us started and guide us further, from the last meeting, someone asked if we could categorize or group like items, do it in that way. So to get us started, came up with a few of the different categories that are mentioned in each of the reports. The one report you didn't have access to last time, which was inadvertent, but you have it tonight, is the TIF. So you'll see with Whole Oceans, so you'll see on this category for plans, you'll see certain things like fiber optics and TIF. And you could follow along with this TIF document to know, okay, we said we'd set aside X amount of dollars for fiber optics. The thing to know about TIFs are that you have to outline the project and then a cost. And you can't go around and changing it at a later date. Once this is approved and then by the council, then approved by the main DECD, it's a binding document.
So,
Rich, if you'd like, I can take notes. I took your document and downloaded it, so I can do notes.
You want to do notes
Yeah.
for me? Okay.
Yep.
Should I update it real time in case so we don't duplicate, or what are you guys' thoughts on that?
It's your call.
your call.
Oh.
I mean, this is a shared document, so it should actually update at the same time.
Yeah, I will call it that one then. I created a new one because I only had view only.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I'll bring up yours and we can do that.
Let me change it for you, if you would. I can do that right now.
Oh, okay.
Can edit. I did.
Perfect. And that shows up to you. Okay.
That's not.
Nope. That's the wrong one. That's the Word document that I created to share it with Mark because I didn't have Google Docs on my phone.
You guys got to get into the modern world here. You want to do received.
Here's Mr. Dunbar.
If you open up your, okay, there's another way to do it.
Go right to my Google Drive.
Go to your drive and share it with me. There you go, you got it. There you go, you're on it.
Frank, if you want to grab one of those agendas, and there's the TIF document attached to that as well.
Okay. So under
You can set anywhere.
Really?
anywhere you want.
Come right up here.
I'll warm it up for you.
Thank you. So just starting at the top, the mill site development. Do you have things to add?
We had, it was in progress, continue to support, and I believe we were talking about Maine Maritime Academy's training center and Whole Oceans and their project as well, and then the fiber optics from the TIF.
Do you want me to put subcategories down there underneath that in progress? You've got the MMA, Whole Oceans.
Yep.
Yeah, and Buttsport Generation, because they're keeping the
Okay.
power plant.
What
And
about
some of the things, again, crosswalking between the Chesapeake and the Adapt and the, I think the comprehensive plan to some extent. What can we do on Route 15 up there in terms of infrastructure, or could we promote, or I know we have to work with DOT, whether it's gas, we've got gas coming down there, but fiber optic up there, create the industrial expansion site they mentioned on Route 15 where potential housing could be. Is that part of that site, all of that site, or is that outside that site that was mentioned there?
That's in the TIF zone, and it was named on the ADAPT plan as a housing option.
And there was an emphasis on making sure that that corridor up there has the right infrastructure to support growth, whether it's housing or additional industry, light industry.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the Drake's Lane property, and I do have a developer, and they are willing to do the project, knowing that they can't add the infrastructure for 4 years, but they're interested in moving forward with
So
that.
say that again, Drake's Lane?
It's the property just south of Drake's
Yeah,
Lane.
But you just said Drake's Lane. I'm just trying to capture what you're saying,
Oh,
and
sorry.
that's a housing development?
Yes, that's identified in the ADAPT plan.
Where's Drake's Lane?
It's a turn off 15. You know where Max
Yeah,
used to have the
Lemon.
flower place up there? That's the lot that's being discussed.
oh,
That's the one that AIM bought and ADAPT identified the potential for.
right,
Is that-
it came with the mill package?
It did.
The mill bought it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, does that go back to the bark dump?
It goes back to the power line, which abuts the bark dump, I
That's
believe.
right, yes. And you should see that in your, in TIF.
The Drake's Lane housing, that was in TIF?
So it's like,
The-
it's the outline of the district, so public safety, street and sidewalk and signage improvements, listed under the project, the second
Okay.
column down.
Yep.
I didn't include the map, I apologize. Schedule I-1 shows the district itself.
So that's possibly a TIF project as well, we could identify it.
Yes,
And we could spend public money on streets and sidewalks in that area because of the TIF zone, correct?
correct. We've got 2.5 million designated from TIF, but that's district-wide sidewalks. So the district includes the Drake's Lane, obviously in front of the mill, and then up Bagley, down Franklin, down Mill, across the main street, and up each of the side roads. Central, First, Second, Third, School Street.
You mean like Central that doesn't have a sidewalk?
Yes, yes.
We got one?
That's included in the zone, but there's 2.5 million that's available for it.
So you have to decide ahead of time what the projects are? Is that what
Not
you're
the
saying?
project itself, but street and sidewalk improvement. That had to be identified, and that was identified and captured.
And funds had to be allocated for
And
that.
then we allocated 2.5
So these
million.
have all been allocated already?
That's correct. What you see in front of you has been allocated,
Okay.
and we're waiting on approval from DECD.
So this is the money that comes from the state, right?
So Whole Oceans will pay taxes. And the
Right,
first 5 years, Whole Oceans will get 100% of the tax back.
right.
And then the next 5 years, they'll get another certain percentage back. We'll get a lesser amount up to the 20-year mark, where we'll then start to see larger portions coming in.
So when is the TIF money available?
TIF money is available once the TIF is approved from DECD, so you can pre-spend it.
Even though we won't see it for 5
5
years,
years.
you can borrow against it and repay the general fund.
That's correct.
The tip is just the offset for giving them the tax. Is that essentially what it is?
Yes, that's it basically keeping our town valuation
Right.
from representing the cost of the project. It doesn't include the so the land had a value,
Right. I see.
and that was captured at that. So whatever AIM paid over and above for that land, plus any improvements they made, that's all been captured.
So inside of this, you can develop projects, but they've got to be towards the way it's listed.
That's correct. So we could say, hey, we don't want to do Drake's Lane, we want to do Central Street. That's been identified. It's going to cost us $2.5 million to add a sidewalk up Central Street to
I
Franklin.
hope not.
Me too.
But you can do that. You can use it all under that category. You didn't have to be specific saying we're doing Central Street from McLeod's to Ocean's Edge Realty. We just had to say we want to do street and sidewalk repair in what's going to be known as the district.
For clarification in my mind, this Drake Lane property, is that on the mill, on the town side of Drake Lane?
Yes, it's Max Mushrall's old.
Yeah, I know, but it's been a long time, I forget exactly where that was.
You know, there's a couple houses and then a gap and then some
Yeah.
more houses in that gap, and it
Okay.
goes all the way back to the power line.
Okay.
Okay.
But
They-
you have a developer that wants to develop it.
I've had someone who's approached me who is interested in negotiating with AIM for the property at this point and would start the project at a later date, knowing that about the moratorium with tearing up Main Street. What they would propose to do is build their road, run the water sewer to the main road, because they can run it that far as long as they're not tearing up that asphalt that was put on 15, and then connect once the moratorium part ended.
So they'd be
Is that more-
4 years down the road, right?
Where it's already been 1 year, so yeah.
And, is there one of these buckets that if, on the tip, that we want to do anything with power lines on Main Street, it would fall under?
Street and sidewalk.
Street, that same 2.5 million.
Okay.
We actually talked about power line, and I'd have to refresh my memory on that because we also added fire truck, which is what they had done previously when a ladder truck, when the mill got one of the first TIFs. In order to service that, we tried to utilize that. We might need to put the lines underground because of public safety. If there were ever to be a fire on Main Street, the ladder truck cannot touch those power lines, or you've got a dead fire truck. But we have to stay in here, and there's a way we can work it that with the power lines. We just have to be careful and do it by plan.
You know, just in terms of process, is that how we want to approach this tonight, in terms of what fits in here? Or do we want to put, you know, our vision of what, or ideas of what might go in those different categories, and then see, well, what fits in a TIF and what fits in other monies that would have to be spent down the road, or?
Sure.
It sounds like we're trying to fit it right into the TIF now, rather than,
I was just looking for
okay.
clarification.
So, yeah, okay, so just we're brainstorming.
I realize we've already talked about $5 million of that, $2.5 million.
And, you know, on to fiber optics. I mean, have you heard from AIM that they need it there on the mill site? I can't
Not
remember.
AIM, but the Maritime Academy. I have to have a conversation with President Brennan. We believe they would fall under the main schools and libraries, where they're a college institution, or it's the training center.
Gray area.
It's a gray area, so we'll confirm with them whether or not they need it or not. Whole Oceans, any of the projects that they're planning on doing over there, resource center, and then you can run that and connect that right into Main Street, into the Main Street as well, into the downtown, because that's part of the district.
So is this the three-ring binder thing? Is that what that is?
This is getting the 3-ring binder. It's off ramp. What we're missing, we have it on the poles,
Right.
but we don't have an off ramp up to those buildings. We need what they call an off ramp. We need we need to make the line live, and we don't have that yet.
And once it's live, then would it be live for everybody on Main Street?
That's right. They'd have to pay obviously for the service, but that's right. We'd have to find a provider who would do that for them. So that's
And that
something.
would go from the bridge out to,
This bridge out to, well, it continues down Route 1, 1-3.
Does it go to the
Oh,
park as
it
far
go-
as the park?
It doesn't go into the park, but it goes out towards
Goes by.
Jerry's, and then it goes all the way back up River Road.
And it goes across the bridge,
Yeah.
right? Goes across the bridge.
That bridge?
I thought
I
it came,
thought it ended there.
Yeah, it doesn't go across. They got something. Verona Island got something because Kim Rosen got together with Spectrum and the state, and they did something different over there. They don't have three. I don't believe they have three-ring binder over there.
Okay.
But I can check on that.
So how expensive is the boat auction?
it would require more usage than AIM alone. We'd have to have more buy-in than that, because that wouldn't make it worthwhile, would it?
No.
I thought that's where we came to with the committee.
Yeah.
When they first came and talked to us about it, it was supposed to run out to the Heritage Park, and they figured there was gonna be 500 customers between the mill and the park, which was, that's the only place that the three-ring binder doesn't come together with Route 1.
But is that just the cable hookup? Is that all? I mean, an internet hookup?
It's
that-
a super high speed.
Oh, it is.
It's fiber.
Okay.
It's fiber optic and not copper. So when you get internet now, even though you might pay for 100 over 25, you're sharing that with everyone else that uses that wire
Right,
that
but
comes
the
off.
fiber's already there.
The fiber's already here. That's right.
So Rich, getting back to the categories,
Mm-hmm.
the fiber optic, is that fall underneath just a mill site development, or is that a Main Street development?
That carries over to Main Street as well.
Okay, so you can put that
And
in both
I would-
categories.
and Heritage Park at some point, right? That is a long-term goal, that should be fiber optic at some point.
That can be fiber optic. I don't believe we can. I don't believe we can use TIF for that though, because that's not. It doesn't need to do. But yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, that's what I was getting with my
Yeah.
question. We want to put stuff here that,
But
So-
isn't that
so-
already full, or just about full?
There's a couple lots. And are you hearing from them, Rich, that that's a deficiency out there? I mean, where it's landed with what's out there now?
There was a deficiency that there was nothing on the pole 2
That's
weeks
fine.
before Greenhead opened. There was miscommunication, and I assumed that the line I saw up there was Verizon, Fairpoint, but it wasn't. So I called Spectrum, and in under 2 weeks, they got internet up on the poles.
So do you want to put that under industrial park?
Yes.
I'm gonna be the process guy here, I think.
Yeah.
Because you guys keep going on these bird walks. The idea was to go into categories. Fill up your buckets before you have your bird walk.
So if we're,
So the mill didn't have fiber optic?
They didn't have an offering from what we were told when they were when Axiom was here. So I assumed that the mill did.
so would we put in that mill site development, continue marketing and pursuing within our ability, other businesses, other industries, or is that, I mean, obviously AIM owns the property, but is that still something that we want to be
want to
doing?
put time towards, I don't know if we should,
Yeah, it's just a question.
because it seems that there's a buyer for the last remaining piece, and at that point,
Mhm.
unless they come forward and say they need it, I don't know that, what do you think, Rick?
Well, Whole Oceans has a purchase and sales agreement to purchase the last piece on the ocean side, which is where the wharf is. So Whole Oceans has a purchase and sales agreement there. This developer is interested in the Drake's Lane property, and then the last thing that's remaining, because the mill, the church bought the old credit union and fitness center, so the only thing remaining is the Timberlands building at that point.
And that was the focus of the community hub piece of the ADAPT plan. I think it was the ADAPT plan that talked about a community hub by the mill
Like
site.
a path connecting and,
Yeah, and a community center and all that, but now that's been taken out by the church. and-
Yeah, it has. So where does that leave us on mill development then? I mean,
What about the port? Does that become part of this? Is that under the category mill site development, the port?
The port piece is under purchase and sales agreement with Whole Oceans. They're purchasing that part of the land. They're proposing to purchase that part of the land as well.
So we won't have anything to do with the port?
No.
In terms of being able to influence that or market that?
Correct.
You're not talking about the war, you're talking
Well, in the ADAPT plan, it talks about expanding the wharf and creating and you've done some work on the port, getting the designation as a port authority to create more opportunities for tankers, larger ships to come in, and they talk in here about filling in that log pond area, and I thought that was an interesting thing, but, so, I guess the question is, do we have any influence on that or not at this point?
I don't think so.
Limited,
Yeah.
at best,
I
would
mean,
think.
if Whole Ocean's gonna buy it, they're gonna dictate where it's headed. And that is redevelopment. I mean, having somebody else pick it up.
Yeah.
So I guess there's not much we can do with that.
So outside of the Drake's Lane, with if it goes industrial, there's really not much on the mill site that we
No.
need for strategy at this point?
No, the only other property you have over there, and I'll have to clarify with Sue, is the Sprague property, where the coal pocket,
Mm-hmm.
that's industrial as well.
So is that considered mill site, or is that?
That's what I had to get clarification on.
It sounds, all the conversation I've heard, it sounds like the Sprague property is a property unto itself.
Yes,
Mhm.
it abuts it, and no water sewer runs from the mill property down there.
Now, I think in the older plans it mentioned the Sprague
Mhm.
property, but the ADAPT plan didn't, if I remember right. I
No.
could be totally wrong.
I don't think it did, and it just, but they talked about in terms of potential things to try to attract from boat building to, is that an area where a boat building or boat repair or boat storage, might be.
Could that be another category that
Could
we
be,
throw on
could
this
be.
list right now, just kind of?
Sprague property, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because,
sure.
I mean, especially if there was gonna be anything on that Drake's Lane property, and there's gonna be water and sewer brought up, it would seem like the appropriate time to at least stub in Sprague, so that there was an option to add water sewer there, if that's where it goes. Okay. Any other input on the mill site development?
I'd like a little clarification on that question that was raised about fiber optics at the Heritage Park.
Yep.
And the question was, is there a need for it out there if we're almost full and no one's asking for it?
That's a
And
valid point.
What I'm thinking of is, if we're talking about another industrial site down here, maybe that's the target for fiber optic, to differentiate between the two.
Yeah, and it would depend on what business comes in and what their needs are. We have to be kind of reactive to that, no?
The two new businesses coming to the industrial park, along with the two in the new phase, I don't believe any of them will need it. Front Street Shipyard and New Farm and Automotive Elegance, Central Maine Cold Storage, maybe Freshwater Stone, Andy O'Dean, maybe. They were more looking for three-phase
Three-phase,
power
Yeah.
from off the pole, and they dealt with CMP and the government for that. So, yeah, you're right. I know there was a push to make that a industrial/technology park. My sense, Hugh's happy with the internet up there. He's Greenhead. He's the one who needed that up to run his business. He hasn't said that it's not up to his standards. Now that may change with more businesses coming up there, but one of the businesses I really can't see them using it, and Whole Oceans for processing. I don't see the need for processing from the other processors.
Any more than what they can get.
Yeah.
The main question is it a nice to have, or is it a must have, is a deal breaker for a business?
Well, my feeling is that maybe we don't, if it's not something like you say, that's not being really demanded right now, I don't think we want to lose sight of it, because,
No.
long-term, I think I used the example of a person I know came from Orlando, Florida, does game design, decided to move back to Machias, Maine, because they have the highest speed internet. And other people, there may be people to attract to this community, whether it's business or small businesses or individual one-person businesses that want to work in an area like Bucksport, but do their business all over the world, need high-speed internet.
And that ties into the broadband plan.
Yes.
And that would put it more in the downtown than the industrial park, right? Is that
But
what you're
you only
saying?
need one off-ramp, right?
And then a vehicle to get it.
No, I mean, one what you called an off-ramp, Rich.
Like the way that's been
To
described
get it active, and then it's just running the fiber up to the,
to the homes.
and
Correct.
fiber up to the Heritage Park?
Correct, yes, because the fiber doesn't go into the park, so you would
Right.
need to extend the fiber that 1 mile. That's right.
And
I would say it's a nicety at this point. I would say what maybe a more of a more so that would benefit the park would be the natural gas.
So what is the development up behind Family Dollar and US Cellular? Is
That's
that
supposed to
down
be
in Ornwell?
Yeah, that's supposed to be started in October.
Right, so that's where you may need it.
That's the Horizon, is that called the Horizon Business and Technology Park? Is that what we're calling that?
Yes, that's how that's referred to in all the previous
But
reports.
that
one's
another
not even
category?
developed, right?
It is. I know there's been talks about changing from what it was to residential. But yeah, that's another category. That's another area of town that we should be.
So we had put up there housing, and then we put Park Street expansion.
That's yes.
So does that cover it? And then we've got the Drake's Lane in that category as well as up in the middle site development, but it's not gonna hurt to have it in two places.
No. No, and the one, up here is more developable now, whereas Drake's Lane, if you gotta wait for sewer, it's 4 or 5 years away.
And you got to build a road too,
Yeah.
Okay.
and go through DEP, which is why they want to get started sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mill site development. I don't see much else. Because you've already got natural gas. You've got all your utilities there.
Okay. So move on to Main Street waterfront. So, attract businesses. One thing that was discussed when MMA came was a business incubator that they were willing to house. And that's something we could work on as a town, in collaboration with Maine Maritime and perhaps Main Street.
So you're down to this 500,000 general economic.
Oh, no, Ron, we're on this other one.
Well, I see that, but I'm trying to put the two together.
Oh, for attracting business, general business attraction marketing. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, isn't that sort of what that is?
That's that. That's
So what are the restrictions on that 500,000? Is that sort of it, what it says?
yeah. So it's so general economic development is for my salary, and activities.
It's not enough.
No, no.
Why are we paying your well, that's another discussion, but, I mean, I'm not sure why we don't make that a permanent position and take it out of the TIF funds, but that's a whole other.
You take it away from
Yeah.
TIF funding.
Take it out. You could. So the position was originally done that way when Dave was here, and I believe his name was Mike Rule, because of the tips from the mill. Those were a lot larger. So that was what they used to do that, and because there's no TIF money coming in, and there's not much TIF money remaining, my salary doesn't come out of that now. So, or a portion of it does, but what's really coming out of that now is to fund some of the groups. I think we took $13,000 this year out of that account, and then some other projects that we do, because it's kind of broad. You're right, it's kind of broad.
Well, I mean, one of the things, I don't know if this is pertinent or not, that we've talked about it, we did that strategic plan for Main Street Bucksport, and one of the sort of goals in there is, do we sort of help, I don't want to mischaracterize it, because it's sort of, it hasn't been presented yet, but it's, I think one of the ideas that was floated around is not that Main Street Bucksport would do it, but the town at some point might need sort of an idea of how to promote itself. And, that, I think it was more that if the town started down that path, that the organization would be ready to assist in that, not, develop it. So, I mean, I have my own thing. I mean, I was surprised when I went on and looked at URLs, what was available for for Bucksport, and I scoffed up quite a few of them. You know, and the main one I'm gonna use is staybucksport.com. But there were quite a few for the state that were available too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised at how inexpensive they were. I mean, I grabbed 6 or 7, and I think it was $84 a year.
Yep.
So, you know, I think that there's quite a bit that can be done there.
Oh, I'd
If
agree.
you look at number 4 and number 5 in the adapt plan, number 4, number 4, under goal, what is it, goal 1, right? It's at 1D. I guess it is, or no, 1EI, solicit services from a community marketing and branding specialist to guide the process. What was the other part of it?
Oh, I see.
Solicit the services for a community marketing branding specialist to guide the process.
Right, you got all kinds, I mean, I haven't fully developed what I'm doing, but I mean, one of the things is, that I'm thinking about using is that sort of launch point, that 18 miles from everywhere thing. So if you think about it, if somebody's, you know, coming to Maine and they want to launch to the peninsula, they want to launch to the Belfast area, they want to launch to Mount Desert, and it just so happens that if you take 18-mile increments, you can grab Camden and, you know, it's an additional 18 miles in Mount Desert, so.
So Rob, you talked about that in the adapt plan, solicit the services of marketing firm to, what was the rest of
Well,
that?
so, you know, if it starts with create a comprehensive marketing branding strategy for the
Right.
town of Bucksport as a to-do item. But with that, solicit the services from a community marketing and branding specialist to guide the process. So it seems to me that if you do that, then you start taking into account things like you just said as part of a planning process.
Right, I think you do, I think you know, I think you could start the process without the specialist and just, you know, toss around ideas, and then, you know, bring a specialist
Yeah.
in to try to say, you know, how do you brand it? It's not,
Right.
I think you get carried, if you just go grab an ad agency right away, you're not even, you haven't even set any sort of parameters.
Is that a fair statement? I just added, I identified adapt plan, solicit the services, marketing firm to guide the planning process to brand and market Bucksport.
And that's for both people and business.
People in business, yeah.
This is similar to that last meeting when there were a crowd of the business owners here who were asking for like a marketing research study or marketing firm or.
No, I mean, I think there could be benefit in just bringing in, and don't have to take them, but get an RFP and see what they would do. What are they going to do to carry us in that direction?
Is that similar to
Jim,
this?
if you want to reference page 72 on the adapt plan, page 72 1E is where that starts, but.
I think anytime we can reference some of these plans, even if there's 3 or 4 references to go down, I think it's valuable, because that's gonna keep drawing us back to, okay, the plans, because you got so much information that's included in all of these plans, but there's a tremendous amount of crossover.
I mean, there's I like, as I reviewed those, you know, create a Main Street waterfront welcome center, explore the development of an aquarium, that may not be, an annual seafood and salmon festival, market and sport Bucksport as a dock, dine, and shop destination, implement a new wayfinding and signage system, you know, where you'd actually have, and they've got some examples in there about that look, you know, at entry at both ends of town. There's all kinds of good ideas that can be part of that whole branding strategy, it seems like.
Yep.
Do you wanna capture those up there?
If you want to just,
I could
with
self-capture.
ideas, they start on page,
I think it's 1D, right?
Yeah, 1D, page 70 of the DAP plan.
Rich, that's something that you could go back in these notes later and add those all right in there. I mean,
Yeah.
because once you start filling these all in, you're gonna start to,
Mm-hmm.
but it's gonna give you a good depth and body of a plan.
Yes.
One thing in this, Main Street area that I think isn't identified, I don't think it is in the DAP plan, it certainly wasn't in the old plan because it didn't exist then, but I think we ought to specifically say something about the Feldman line, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, that might be another, we have a category right now, I think it's called housing. Do we want to put that right under Main Street? Or would you prefer to put that under housing, or how would you like to categorize that?
I think it ought to be on the Main Street.
In the Main Street? Yeah,
Say
Feldman.
Main Street, and it could be anything, we don't really know what we want it to be, but we need to
So-
focus on it.
So development of Feldman property.
Yes.
What's that, the one on Main Street?
You want it over here?
Yeah, that's the one that the University of Maine of Augusta, that I've been in contact with their department, and this spring they had to bring it to their board this September, and this spring, look at having the students come back with the conceptuals for that property.
To see what might be possible with the engineering challenges of that hill.
Is that zone commercial or residential or?
Yeah, between Mill and yeah, in that area, commercial, and then resi up above. Or I believe the ordinance may have recently been changed as well, that a certain portion of the downstairs can be residential. But when we get to that point, we can, because when we give them designs, when we give them what we want, we need to tell the university what the students are going to be doing. So we need to have a better idea of what we want there, and they'll do it. We can't just say, here's a lot, do this. The teacher said, we don't do that. You need to be clear on what you would like. So if you want commercial, if you want mixed use, but yeah. No, that's a good point, though, John Paul.
Will that cord reach over here,
Frank, you're the driver.
No, I'm not.
Frank, that's a computer.
Sorry, it's not a problem.
When I come, I usually put my calendar right there.
Mark? Let's straight seats, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Rich, I'm sort of wondering if the idea behind all of this, that the Economic
Not tonight.
Development Committee actually comes up with some recommendations for the town?
It's a strategy, a recommendation that that the town should be following, correct? And you, in the past, and I found the 1995 report, seems like it gets done about every 13 years. In the 1995 report, and when you compare it to the 2008 report, you can see some of the progress that was made. But there are still things, and we haven't touched on it yet, like childcare, which has been an issue since 95, 08, 2019. So it's a work in progress, but it's a guide for not only myself, but for this committee to take a charge and make sure we tackle it as best we can.
I kind of look at it like we all have our own perspective of which way we're going, but as you sort of expand and then contract, so you get the ideas up there, then you narrow down in terms of priorities, resources, impact, and what we can accomplish. That's what we would recommend to the town.
Yeah.
Right? It's something-
So might part of the process be to solicit ideas?
Well, it seems like, the ADAPT plan
Yeah, I was gonna say.
was a community, and Heart and Soul were both community-based, had a lot of community input. I still think we could just adopt the ADAPT plan for the most part and make some amendments for some other things that aren't named in there. Because there's things in there we still haven't done.
That's the way, when I went back through it and compared it to the Chesapeake, the comprehensive plan, it really seems like it has elements or specifics of everything we're talking about even tonight. That provide a start point It's just a matter of what do we work on first, or what do we promote first?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and if you look at, I think as we go through this, we're gonna see, like, the Mills site, there isn't a whole lot we can do there. Maybe high-speed internet if they need it, but if they don't, we don't need to do it.
Right. Control those ones or whatnot. But, yeah, right. And the other thing, there's so many plans, so I'm grabbing at straws from each plan so that each person who has been part of a committee for each of the groups, I'm trying to do something from each one of them to keep everybody happy. If this is an economic development strategy, this is what guides me on my day-to-day, well, the long-term plans, whereas all these others that they're all single are, okay, I'm going to make sure I get something from comprehensive plan because I don't want someone coming here saying, hey, you're not doing what the comprehensive plan's telling you, which the comprehensive plan says, do what we're doing tonight. The heart and soul says we've got these 82 citizen-generated ideas, economic development is responsible to do X, so try to do at least one of those, and then the adapt plan, so let's try to do one of those, and then keep moving between each of the programs to keep each of the groups know that there's the focus there and that we'll keep doing all that and keeping everybody know that we are moving forward. It's just this right here, a guide, if we pull from each, put it into one, everybody's ideas are in one document, and we're not bouncing back and forth between 5. At least that's the way I see it.
I don't think that's what the charge was, though.
No.
You gotta go back to the charge, and the charge is come up with the economic strategy for the development using the basis of all these other plans. And by doing that, I think you've achieved one of your stated goals of keeping people recognizing that their ideas and their work are being listened to and being pulled in. But, I don't think you want to be bouncing back, going, okay, this week I'm working on this plan. You want to have one document that
Well,
generates.
and I gotta believe the ADAPT people looked at these old plans.
They
I mean,
sure did.
They
Well,
brought all that in.
It's all tied in.
Yeah.
But again, I think the categories here almost capture the categories out of the ADAPT plan.
Yeah, I don't know that they named childcare would be the one that.
No,
They-
which
No,
is,
no, they do. I believe
They
they
do
do.
on,
They do have childcare.
okay.
Goal
Yep.
number, I think it's goal number 6 or something like that.
I'm not sure if, I think Heart and Soul had something. Is that right, John Paul? Did Heart and Soul have something with childcare as well? Do you recall?
Well, the quality of, facilitate the creation of new housing under, that's one of the goals under support and enhance the quality of life. I think public transportation, might have been the other plan that they did that. But it's certainly an easy one to add, that we need to add. I think everybody recognizes that's been.
do the ADAPT plans speak to the Sprague site specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did see that in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, under 2D on page 105, extend wastewater infrastructure along River Road to provide services to the proposed workforce housing development and other future development, including the Sprague site.
So Jim, getting at what you were, from a process standpoint, if we continue to fill these categories, and then from each of these categories, we could be identifying the priorities.
That's where I see you taking it, and, it's gonna allow this committee to say, okay, what jumps out, and, okay, and that's why I keep putting TIF in wherever I can see the connection, because then you're gonna say, okay,
It's a big
that
one.
tells us we've got a vehicle that can fund some of this, and then you've got other ones. And I'm just thinking in terms of, so when the council has a chance to really debate and discuss everything, they can come up with, okay, these are all great ideas. Now, where are we gonna put as priorities? Where do we wanna go? These are level A, these are,
Yeah, what's the low line fruit?
right, and go from there, and then, and what it will do is it'll be able to rely on all these other plans as foundation, but it gives you a document that you're working from, that you don't have to go back.
Is there, could you scroll down, please,
Yep.
what's under industrial park and there's other categories, housing?
It's housing, childcare, and other.
There's one here, and Ronnie, you brought up something we were talking a while back about that art sculpture thing from out west.
Yeah, I mean,
And that, under goal 4, it says promote high-quality design, and the ADAPT plan has all kinds of ideas around sculptures and murals and creating a downtown that's, kind of exciting, innovative, unique.
yeah, I mean, to me, this is your fund, or some funding, is TIF funding, right?
Grant funding would be another.
I mean, just from I don't go to that many council meetings, but think of it, but it seems like dollars are pretty precious in the regular run of the town's business, so that it's almost like the categories, to me, almost ought to be these 6 categories here that have funds attached to them. Or maybe there's more than that, I guess there's 7. And, then if the town wants to branch off and add some money to some of that, that might be a way to approach it, I guess. I'm sort of seeing, the way I guess they've already been set aside of the TIF, if it gets approved, there'd be 500,000 approved. Now, is that 500,000 over the,
Duration of the TIF, isn't it?
right, so, I mean, if it's gonna pay how long is the TIF, 10 years, 20 years?
20 years.
20 years, so if it's gonna pay municipal staff salaries, it's gone. There's not really anything for anything else. So if that's how they're gonna use it. So, all the other stuff, like not using it for a branding thing or stuff like that, there's not gonna be any funds for it.
The way I understand the way the TIF is currently written, the only amount of money to be used for associated costs, which organization administration costs, is $15,000. Everything else is dedicated to other pockets.
Well, it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, well, the fourth one down.
Economic development,
Yeah.
That's where,
cost of town economic development department, including municipal staff salary.
Good point. I'm sorry.
So, I mean, that right there, to me, that money over 20 years is expended.
or we make the economic development director position a town position and use TIF funding for,
Right. The other things. I mean, I think that's the gist of what you gotta do.
and, I
Yeah,
mean,
but one of the categories is, I don't see where public, I guess you could make the connection, public safety, vehicles and equipment is economic development, but if we're here for economic development, I'm not sure why we'd wanna consider.
I think it was a
that
category
piece
they're
of it.
able to get the
Is it
TIF
just
funding
because it's
into.
a TIF
Yeah.
piece?
Yeah, and these, a lot of what was here is what's been done before, but Sue and I, when we had the conversation with the lawyers and with Whole Oceans, we looked at the ADAPT plan, and the internet was, the broadband was one of them, the recreational trails, because we tried to get the pool, because recreation you could do that, but they changed the law a couple years ago where for recreation it can only be walking trails and somehow has to connect back to the district.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you, Rich. I mean, if you take that internet, that's earmarked $500,000 for the internet. So the whole idea, I don't know how expensive it is to do the off-ramp, as you called it, and run fiber out to the thing, but, I don't think maybe it's more expensive than not, but I know when we've done new buildings at Darlings before, just to get the service, they ran fiber for us from, one side of the street to the other. And it wasn't, it was expensive, but it wasn't hundreds of thousands of dollars.
We had some degree of numbers, didn't we, Rich, when we did the,
The broadband planning grant?
Yeah.
We have those numbers. I can retrieve that document.
Right, and how far will that take us? I mean, you know, that might already take care of the two things we really talked about. So, since it's already earmarked for that,
Yeah, it can't be used for anything else.
might as well find a way to spend it, and if it, you know, if it really connects from Drake's Lane all the way up to the industrial park.
I can't remember the number, but do you remember any concept of what that number was, Rich?
There's some range of cost,
Yeah.
but it's upwards of $5 to $6 a foot.
Doesn't get as far.
$5 to $6 a foot, I mean, you can run a mile for
Yeah, and that's just,
$25,000, so, you know, you might have a hard time figuring out, maybe you're allowed with that to take that 500,000 then and use it, more as a incentive for businesses that will hook you up if you move into the industrial park, you know, the part that they normally pay for.
Right.
If there's excess funds, or you could get creative with that to do other things, but I think that's one that is just figuring it out, allocate the money, make the recommendation, and move on to another one.
I like what you're saying because a lot of from would adapt with your focus on the TIF document because the answer's right there.
Right.
Because a lot of this is what we want to do. I'll go find grant, go ask the town,
Yeah, it's
find
just-
the money.
It's just how you go at it. You know, I was looking at it from the standpoint, you create, then from your creation, you say, okay, internet's one, it's here, we do it. But if you narrow your thinking to what's here, then your creative, you might be eliminating some ideas that wouldn't be there. So it doesn't matter. I think your point's valid. If we want to stick to just this, then
Right, but there's some simple answers, like the one for
Yeah.
general economic development. I mean, if you really wanna do something with that money, other than pay the salaries, then you gotta make that decision, or say contribute 5,000 a year for 20 years, that's 100,000 that you do. And then the rest, we really oughta, you know, spend it in 5 years to get a branding, you know, message for the town going, that attracts people and makes businesses healthier and everything else. So you might say, you know, let's sort of allocate 75,000 for that and
Mm-hmm.
see what we can do.
So,
I think we're up to housing or industrial park. Industrial park.
well,
Yeah, we can do it another time. Thanks.
you've only got a couple things on. You got 6 lots remaining, and you said you've got expressed interest in 4 out of the 6.
it might be down to 3, right?
Yeah, depending on what Whole Oceans does. One of the other people we just spoke Monday. He's going to take 1 instead of 2 lots.
Okay.
So that leaves 3, but, yeah, I mean, are you getting more interested parties coming along? I mean, is that something you
Yes,
envision?
I got another person who might take 1 lot, who's currently in the Dowd Park up in Bangor.
But do you feel we need to work on that, or do you feel you've got enough interest and momentum that it's going to sort itself out?
I think it will, but I think it'd be important to keep it there and not to lose
Oh, sure.
sight that it's
what about natural gas? Is that something where we
natural gas. Yeah.
put that down as a goal for the industrial park?
Yeah.
That has been expressed.
And that was not in, what plan was that in? I remember reading about
It
natural
was,
gas.
it was in both, I think. I think it was in the Chesapeake and the Adapt.
I thought it was in Chesapeake that was talking about bringing the gas into.
Yes, yeah,
the
that was
bigger-
specifically, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I think it also mentioned.
And actually, to go back to John Paul's development of the Feldman property, natural gas there may be, because the natural gas stops at this building on Main Street.
Oh, it does?
Yes,
Oh.
it does not, even though it says on the sign, I had a
It goes to
conversation.
school.
It goes to school, but it does not go to that lot. Bangor
However,
Gas was just there.
however, you can get there
From,
if you go up Park Street, right? If you take the natural gas off Broadway
yeah,
And keep going on
and
the new
expand
road.
onto
closer.
Park Street,
yeah.
you're gonna shorten your jump into the industrial park. You can't think about coming in through the front door, you gotta think about coming in
Oh, yeah.
the back door.
Yeah, you get it down Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause you were talking.
Feldman property right here on Main Street, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be another one.
But as far as the Feldman property, you'd have to reach that, I believe, from here. I don't know.
Well,
You could possibly come down from
school and then down the sidewalk.
Right,
Yeah.
yep.
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So we're past industrial park, is that
If we're gonna
correct?
do it from here, you wouldn't be able to do it for 4 years, right?
No, they didn't tear up this part. It's only at the stoplight, Bridge Street. Bridge
Yeah.
Street down, yeah.
And I think you could probably go the sidewalk, I mean, that's where they've done others.
Yeah, that was mentioned as well, yeah. Yeah, 'cause when I mentioned this Jay, you
Mhm.
can do right to the sidewalk. And I think your idea is good. I've had someone on Main Street further down on this side of the road who wants it to them as well, so.
Okay. So,
Industrial park.
if we're done with industrial park, moving on to housing? So, Rich, you're saying the Park Street expansion is gonna happen next month?
The roads are supposed to happen next month, yeah.
And will that be pavement and everything?
I'm not sure. I talked to Johnny Jr.
Yep. Okay.
He said they would start up with that in October, but he wasn't very clear how far they'd be able to get along, of course, with the seasons changing and everything. But the whole project's covered already, so it was just waiting for a go.
Okay. And we've talked about Drake's Lane, so that brings balanced inventory, which I think we were referring to the need for single-level housing, condominiums. You know, that's just a segment that's missing here.
Yeah, one of the things they mentioned in 5A was, I can find it here, was
That came out of the ADAPT plan.
out of the ADAPT plan, yeah, 5A, promote homes for whole oceans, but also condos and housing apartments on the main street.
To have more people living downtown.
Promote apartments and condos on or near Main Street. Infusing residential uses in the Main Street areas will enhance its vibrancy, which is what Ronnie's trying to do right now. Support existing and new businesses in the heart of town. So,
That's
you know,
You're the whole plan.
a combination of that off Main Street, but also, as somebody mentioned, businesses on the bottom,
Yep.
apartments on the top.
So is balanced inventory a wrong comment there, or is that?
I mean, I don't think it is, because we have missing segments between condos and single-story living, newer housing. There isn't a lot of that here either.
Right.
So throw down some
Examples,
condos, single-family housing.
newer housing.
Upper floors of mixed-use buildings directly on Main Street.
And that kind of speaks to the development of the Feldman property, to hold
Yeah.
true to that concept.
And it looks like there's no TIF monies that can be used for that.
I don't believe there is, Ron. All right, childcare? There's a need.
There's a definite,
Constant
at least in my world, I hear it all the time. And the fact that we went to all-day four-year-old programming, and we have 62 out of 64 slots filled. You know, and when we did our surveys, looking ahead at populations and everything, we were projecting we would be having classes of 75 to 80, and our kindergarten this year is 83, 84. And then you got 62 now in pre-K.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty strong. But there's still a definite need for that birth, especially 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
High need.
Yeah,
And
And-
it's not there.
and that would seem,
Okay. Yeah. That was mentioned in the Chesapeake plan. I didn't see it specifically in the ADAPT, but it goes without saying. It should be there.
It was more in the Chesapeake plan that I saw it.
yeah. But it's there, and the Y, I agree, would be a real good partner or something like that, because if there's any talk of any expansion or anything, could encompass that too, perhaps.
So the daycare that's up, by the schools, is that, who is that, who runs it?
Bucksport Area Child Care, and that's
Nonprofit?
it's a nonprofit. I think they're a 503.
I'm not sure about that.
But they have a nonprofit status. I don't know the
And how are
designation.
they funded?
They're funded through their own resources, through what they generate in fees. And I
They get
It's a
some
small
from-
appropriation.
A small appropriation
from
from
the
the
town.
town.
And that's it?
But they're maxed out, they can't, they
Right,
never
are
have
they
room.
interested? Did they build the building and all that?
The building was actually brought here from the University of Connecticut. It was a modular that they were disposing of down there. And the Wardwells dragged it up here and placed it up on there, and that was town-owned property.
And they've been to the council before, they had plans to expand probably, 4 or 5 years ago?
Just before the mill
Yeah,
went down.
and they backed away from it, but
Yeah.
they see the demand, but I don't think they've got the resources to pull forward with an expansion.
They do have a little bit of room left now because of our 4-year-old program
It
that
opened
we
up.
started, opened up some room for them, but for them to take on the very early childhood, the birth, that's very expensive because your ratio is 3 to 1,
Yeah.
3 infants to 1, so that's where your high need is, and then
What
there's,
is, what is their age?
they do from birth through 4.
You
I think it's the
And then
birth age,
after
yeah.
school, they'll do kids right up through 5th grade, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
know? Well, isn't that sort of a natural place for expansion to go first? I mean, it's existing, it's,
It is. I don't know if it's a staffing. You can only, for toddlers, you can only have so many toddler to.
Each age range, so
yeah.
they have age range from birth to 18 months, I think, is a 3
3 to 1
to
ratio.
1, and then you go up a little higher as you get to that next group. Yeah, I think you're right, though, the potential for them to take on
I said
some.
they were interested in expanding before, you say the need is there.
Yeah.
The need's definitely there.
Now, is any of the tuition and fees there funded by programs?
I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
I don't know.
I don't know of any program. I mean, I think it's primarily just fees brought in is what's funding them.
But there are some programs that would help
I mean, like
mothers
government.
getting back into the workforce, things like that, but I don't think it's a very large portion. I mean, we can certainly ask the new director.
Yeah, I would think that should be maybe a strategic partner to at least investigate.
Mm-hmm.
And or the Y, because they do also do that in other communities. So
Yeah, Y's got a big childcare. Actually, the BACCC we've collaborated with, and they're doing what we call our preschool and kindergarten after-school program for families. So instead of taking the kids out of the Jewett school and moving them to another place, they're bringing their staff down and just co-using the
So
facility.
what the acronym we use, who's that? Is that them?
Yes.
BACCC is Bucksport Area
Child Care Center.
Child Care Center.
That's the one we're talking.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds, and the Y, I probably should know, but they don't have a home as of now?
they're in the Jewett School.
Oh, they are?
But Jim's concerned that there isn't going to be space going forward, and that's why maybe there's a conversation between the Y and child, incorporate childcare into whatever their next move's going to be.
One of the things we're facing is at the state level, they're looking at what to do with CDS, Child Developmental Services, that are tasked with birth through 4-year-olds. Public schools take over 5 through, and 5 and above. But what they're looking to do is transitioning the 3 and 4-year-olds to public schools, especially for early identification for high needs children, to get them services earlier. But that's the big snag for this is that CDS continually overruns their annual budget,
Sure.
so they want to just transition it into the schools, which is going to put the same pressure, just shifting it into a new silo. So we're,
Shift the resource.
yeah, we're kind of
No resources, but shift the responsibility.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're having that conversation, and we're proposing, shift the 4-year-olds over to public schools, which is one of the goals of early childhood. That's a larger state goal, that's fine. Keep the birth through 3. But, so it's a huge conversation, but something is going to happen. And right now, we're full. And if we need much more space,
Something's gonna give.
something's got to give, and that's where we are. And the Y really doesn't have that much square footage per se. It's basically 1.5 classrooms. So it's not like they're taking up huge amounts of space.
It's true.
But that's something that, and what I'm afraid of is like last legislative session, they passed 265 bills and over 75 of them hit the education. And there's a lot of bills that are taking effect tomorrow. There's not much lead time to get ready in 2 months.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid they're going to all of a sudden pass this, okay, you've got all 3 through 5-year-olds, good luck.
They haven't passed that yet.
No, but they've tabled that conversation. That has been on the front burner conversation for 3 years now. And we will see. So.
Jim, could you go back to the housing just for a second?
Yep.
And add, it might be just important to keep track of it. We had a page 11 of the comprehensive plan. They've got a number of different things around housing that might be good references. One of them that I think we lose sight of sometimes, and it might be important as we're trying to attract people to come work at Colossians, that it's promote moderate to high-end housing. Obviously they cover first-time home buyers, safe, affordable housing, but they also make a specific mention to promote moderate to high-end housing, to get more of those people that might live outside of town, Hamden, to move to Bucks.
So that's kind of that balanced inventory of housing comment.
Yeah, it definitely goes to that. And that's page 11.
I think it's key to specifically talk about price range. And you mentioned a lot of things that maybe one could assume addresses that, but I think it's important to specifically state that.
Yep.
One thing I didn't see on here, and I'm trying to remember if it was in any of the reports, Washington and Hancock County is facing a shortage of beds for nursing homes as well. I don't know if put the word home in it, so I mean, is that something that this group wants to look at? 'Cause I know at one point on the Park Street, that's one of the projects that Mr. Wardwell was looking at. The group ended up North Atlantic or Atlantic something, and they ended up in Ellsworth. But do we want to have the charge of looking for nursing home for the seniors?
I mean, that fell apart last time. Why was that? They didn't think there was enough demand? Was that what it was?
It could be, but since then you've lost the one in Penobscot. I think there may be one in Washington County.
Again, the housing goal in the comprehensive plan says Bucksport aims to have a diverse housing stock that is safe, energy efficient, pleasant, and affordable for all income and age groups, including purchase, rental, special needs housing.
Yep.
Bucksport also supports measures that help the elderly and disabled to live in their homes as long as possible. So I mean, it's probably implied, if not part of that whole goal.
To stay in your community. Yeah.
Well, certainly in a way, I think Mike intends to address some of that with his analysis.
Yeah, that's true.
And that might put a certain lot of houses back on the market.
That would be a hope, yeah.
Yeah.
Get people out of the maintenance.
I mean,
Okay.
he's free, he's got a plan.
Good with
for
that.
100 units, right?
What's that?
It ended up being less than that. It's somewhere more around the 50 number. Do you remember what number that was, Jim? That final number that they talked about for the Haas project?
I think it's 40.
I kind of lost him when he was talking to us at that meeting upstairs, when he said the low to medium range housing that he was building in. You talking about the same guy?
The senior 55 older homes out on Central Street by the garage?
Oh, Mike Rose.
Yeah.
It's,
It was somewhere between 40 and 50, I believe, was the final number.
Oh, really? I know he was originally,
Is it? Yeah.
originally he said 100.
Originally, he wanted 100.
do you have more to add?
No, there's a lot on the waterfront, but, I mean, I think waterfront in general, that could be low-hanging fruit, things that we put in a longer-range plan, that, from extending the walkway to signage, sculptures, all those marina things that we're trying to do already. So that was a good thing as I read through this. There's a lot of things that we've got started or some effort underway that are part of these plans.
I would agree.
45 lots.
45.
I actually had the site map,
Oh, there you go.
being of a certain age.
We'll keep your options open.
Yeah, one of the plans from before was pursue or reuse or redevelop underutilized structures in the community, including the Lumen Warren School building. So a lot of my time is, I shouldn't say a lot, but I've spent some time working right now. As you know, the Masons are trying to sell their building, but now the American Legion's in a place where their membership is down, their furnace isn't working.
No, it's gone.
Right.
You can see right through it when it comes on from any direction. That thing should be,
Well, I've worked with them in Home Depot, and we found them a grant to be able to look at getting that. But what they need is someone to do the work for the hooking the furnace up itself. Someone who's trained and qualified. The Home Depot people can carry it in. They can do the siding. They can do the windows and all that other stuff.
gotta get a lining for the chimney too.
Gonna get a line for chimney, but it comes down to the end of the day, they need money. So you've got groups who are looking for the Masons, the possibility that that building's gonna be back out, the American Legion Hall, the possibility
Back
that
out?
that's gonna be there,
What do you mean back out?
back on the market or whatnot, like the Mason is for sale,
Yeah.
but the American Legion, if they can't afford to do the upgrade, if they can't get the furnace, they're gonna lose the building. They just don't have the money or the resources.
Sorry, where's your building?
It's off of Mechanic Street. Do you know where the where the superintendent's
Right
office
across the
is?
street from the superintendent's office, central office.
The old
Oh, the old.
Old Lumen Warren.
Lumen Warren School. So you get the playground, the Lumen Warren School.
I thought that was all fixed up.
No, that's the old junior high you're thinking of.
Oh, the old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Gardner Commons.
That building used to sit where the Masons did
Yes.
years ago, and they hauled it up there by oxen.
No.
Let me talk about
Okay.
The building on the corner
The Legion
of
building?
Yeah,
Yes.
Legion.
Mechanic Street and
No
Elm
old
Street
building, boy.
is the Legion Hall.
Yeah, it's a white building. They re-shingled half of the roof. The other half of the roof needs to be done. The windows are failing. The furnace is gone. It needs to be lined. And I've got them a grant lined up with Home Depot, but they don't have the money to cover the specialists to come in and do the other work. So they're concerned.
So they give up that property.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like that place is in such disarray that it's not really an option for someone to come in and renovate it.
Take down.
It's take down and rebuild.
And is that lot
One of the
rebuildable?
current setbacks,
Yeah.
10 feet off.
Yeah,
You're small, skinny.
yeah, that's what I'm,
Yeah.
And had it not been moved, I would think it would have been on the National Historic Registry, because that building, Frank's right, that building used to sit where the Mason Hall is now,
the spot, that was
Yeah.
in Spofford School.
and then I moved up there. So
I went to
That's
school,
gone.
I went to school there too.
That Spofford School was built when? That was in the,
Turn of the, I think late 1800s.
yeah,
I don't
it was
know.
before the Lumen Warren School, and
Yeah.
that was done in
Oh, that I know,
23.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was late 1800s.
Well,
Dean said she went to school there,
Yeah.
my wife.
But you've got that, the Masonic Hall is available for development.
what's gonna happen with the church, Methodist?
Somebody bought it.
Yeah.
Somebody did buy it?
the person I think who bought the clock bought it.
That's what I heard.
Oh.
That's what I heard too. But I believe they're putting their land they own back on sale.
It's under, I think that's under contract.
Right. But so I mean, I don't know if there's any other buildings you guys can think of or anything like that, but reuse or redevelopment of townhome. So was the
There's no
Lu-
other town in this. I got a barn.
Mark's got about yeah.
What's the building that you guys own up there?
Wilson Hall.
we stored the Christmas lights there and stuff. When we took them down this year.
Is that the fire, is that the fire
Oh, the
department?
fire.
Oh, the
The
old fire
fire
hall,
building?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's just full of fire
Fire
equipment.
stuff.
Oh, that one on School Street?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
And that is town owned.
That's down on,
Yeah.
it's kind of a neat old building.
It is a neat old building, yeah, I agree.
So is that, are there any plans for that building?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, they did do work in recent
Yes,
years.
he did,
Yeah.
yeah, did a lot of work on it.
Yeah,
I think it still stores the old Torrent engine in there.
The old antiques, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
The old bell system for the fire.
Yeah.
To know where to go.
but I can't think of any other building we own.
I don't.
So, is there a place in this plan, and I'm not suggesting it be there, but for money available or something to address what I'll call blight? So, houses in town that maybe someone occupies, maybe not, but are in definite need of improvement.
Those would be the CBGB.
You can get
grants that we can't-
CDBG money to do that. I think there might be somewhere in this revolving loan.
Money there, isn't there?
Funds may also be used for matching grant programs to fund municipal infrastructure and economic development improvements and initiatives.
That looks like more your incubator.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I'm not sure if you can't not necessarily use that to. I can get clarification. You know how they want you to do matches sometimes. If we could use any of that for
It
match.
says it's down below, it says may be used for matching grant programs.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Municipal infrastructure and economic development improvements and initiatives. So I don't know what that last line means, economic development improvements and initiatives,
Right.
but I have an idea on how to use it. Which I would love to make a presentation sometime, just so, I actually acted on it for my building, so there'll be a show and tell portion of that building.
So I put up there, it's gone down now,
Yeah.
but I put up there address Blythe.
Yep.
Is that,
it's been an ongoing
Like
conversation.
Larry's building behind me,
Needs to come down.
it needs to come down.
Larry Wall's building.
Yeah.
I know Jeff Hammond, prior when he left, had sent out notices, and it was in the newspaper. The one Priscilla's building between the hotel and Glenn's place.
wasn't that supposed to come down last month?
I know there was a notice. I'm not quite sure when they were supposed to come down. There were so many properties we were talking about. That one got recognition. The one Carpenter, Wendy Carpenter's, I think there was a note there. There was a note for the one by Family Dollar. That one's supposed to come down this month.
Who owns that?
Tom Ellis. He owns the development, the Family Dollar development. He
Tom
purchased
Ellis
it.
can afford to take that down.
And then
That was Al Gray's.
and then Larry's was mentioned. I think that's the ones that I remember that were listed, but you can find others and maybe
There's one on
So-
Second Street.
Have they been condemned by the town?
I don't know that they've been formally condemned that I've seen.
no.
I don't think so.
I mean, Larry said he was gonna tear that one down when he bought it.
Well, I think he would have, but he, you know, was off on another project.
Yeah.
He's been given to the end of the year,
Into this year?
end of this year.
Oh, well.
Eddie Mercer's?
Yeah.
That's one that was
That was
discussed.
one,
The
yes.
old house,
Yeah.
is roof's collapsed on it.
And I think that's isn't there a paper street that runs through there that goes to Miles Lane?
I don't know of one, but,
Be on the wrong side of the street.
yeah, Miles
Okay.
Lane would be right by
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts. It would
Okay.
come out right there. And that's still a public easement, I think, or something.
But and back eighties, all those little cabins.
Eddie
Yeah.
Mercer's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're sure Tom Ellis owns that one? Because I heard, I thought somebody told me Johnny Wood.
No, that was Johnny's land, but that is Tom. We've talked to Tom. We had a call when we thought there were squatters in there.
He bought the whole front of that lot, or most
Which
of it.
included that, what he wanted to do was have the town, he wanted to give the building to the town for the fire department to burn, but it was too close to Route 1. What he wanted to do originally, when he did the TIF, he wanted to include that land and make that a parking lot. and you couldn't, apparently the rules back then or even now, you couldn't do it for so much impervious surface with parking lots and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, you can tell there's signs of something's happening, because there's like windows missing now and doors missing. So I don't know if they're getting the scrap out of there or saving what they can and then demolishing the rest. I went to Subway yesterday and I noticed.
So it seems to me, and, you know, teachers here, but that right now our strategy is, don't do anything with these blight homes, and sooner or later, they'll be condemned when you can tear them down.
That sounds like the plan. It does. It doesn't sound like much of a plan. I mean, Lewiston takes a more, it's coming down approach. And then you have all these, the fear that we have, if you do that everywhere in Main Street, you have all these vacant lots and all that. But yeah, I mean, some of these properties we've been dealing with for years,
Well,
sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, so, and what that'll eventually create is gentrification, I mean, because what's gonna happen with those empty lots? Someone's gonna buy them and put up
New stuff.
New stuff.
new stuff.
That would be my
So,
guess.
so if we're trying to keep a balanced inventory, we have to address it.
Well, I think, from an economic development standpoint, we want people to come to Bucksport, we want people to move here, and everything speaks, whether it's signage, whether it's the blight, so somehow those need to be part of our goals and strategies. How do we get it so?
Would you want to move that up underneath housing?
See,
It could be,
I
yeah.
agree with Robbie, I think that's where
Yeah.
you sort of, that goes with branding, it goes with,
Marketing.
like my idea is to develop a draw, and the draw has to do with what Bucksport can be. I mean, it can't be a Camden, it doesn't have the infrastructure to be a place where you're gonna spend the day shopping. There's just not enough Main Street, there's not enough commercial district. So, I think it has more to do with like the dine, dock, and shop, but it might be more dine, dock, and recreate, you go to the Alamo or, something like that. But I see it as sort of a quick stopover, that people driving to Bar Harbor turn left at the light, or the ones driving on 395 in Bangor, headed to 1A, decide to go 6 miles out of their way, and pass through. So that, might take care of a lot of your other problems. I can only tell you from the other day, I'm sort of in town way more than I used to.
Used to be.
And I got stopped 3 times on Main Street. First was a older lady, where can I get a good cup of coffee? I was across the street and pointed to the local variety. And then somebody said, where can you get a sandwich? And I pointed to over there. And then a third person that was obviously just stopped. And I've seen people sort of wandering on Main Street looking for more shops, but the curiosity factor seems to go up.
Yeah.
And then one night I stopped and there were 2 young ladies that were down on the wharf battling mosquitoes. I don't know where all the mosquitoes came this summer in Bucksport, but and I was taking a picture of the sunset, and so were they, and so I asked them if they got any good shots, and it turns out they were 2 girls from France that, had come over here from Vermont, New Hampshire, and they were staying in Bucksport for the night, and then going to Bar Harbor
Mm-hmm.
the next day. They had a rental car. So they're sort of around a lot.
I would agree.
And if you gave them just a tiny bit more reason.
So one of the things that, I can't remember which plan, it talked about, I think it was adapted, it talked about more choices as far as hotels or motel type of thing.
Or restaurants. I think.
Microbreweries, even, you're not gonna have a lot of them, but you could.
Come on, Mark.
We tried to do something. But, yeah, I mean, that's the business recruitment side of it. And that would help the businesses that are here, because if we had more variety of business, we'd be attracting more people, not just the tourists around, but the people that live 30 miles around us.
You can see it already. If you go down, and I've mentioned in a couple council meetings, you go into, when there's an event at the Alamo or a Main Street event, all the people coming, you go into the different restaurants, and it doesn't seem there's a lot of people from Bucksport and, you know, the Friars or Wine and Design. They're from, you know, 10, 15, 18 miles away because we had an event. So to your point, you know, if you had a reason for people to stop in, that wasn't necessarily going to be, or isn't going to be shopping necessarily, you know, that could be a byproduct, but something for people to come to see.
Right, if you get that last piece of land on the waterfront and then, you know, go ahead and just try to do out of, sounds to me like there's money there to do what we tried to get the grant for down there.
At least for the planning side of
But
it.
if you could pull up those railroad tracks, and then what I would do is, I'd take all that iron and go find all the old millwrights and welders and say, all right, build us some art out of these things, and let's put them back up. And I think they could probably make some pretty cool things, and you just take what you got and add in what I'd like to put, and all of a sudden you got maybe a reason to stop.
Yeah. Good point.
And that's listed in that, in the ADAPT plan, along that whole stretch of where the tracks are,
Yeah.
that type of a thing. Not specifically what you said, but similar.
Yeah.
Things.
So that's waterfront, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be.
So to kind of capture that would be a way to capture that.
Let me find that.
Yeah, and I was talking to Billy the other day, we, you know, had family gathering. He was just saying, he can't believe it, the view that's out of that building that they bought. You know, he
Oh, yeah.
said it's like crazy good. He said all these people are gonna come and they're gonna be sitting in there taking a class and looking out there at one of the best views in the state of Maine.
Yeah, nice.
Well, they call it, I mean, it's under, it's, I don't know if this is exactly it, but it speaks to it on page 68, 69 on the ADAPT plan with a, and basically it says, create a riverfront enhanced Main Street dining, entertainment, business district. But, you know, it goes beyond just that piece on the waterfront, but arts and cultural venues, brew pubs, restaurants, picnic areas, public art, amphitheater, public fishing pier, kayak rental dock, lookout platforms. And then it has a picture of those railroad tracks
Right,
specifically.
right. So take them out, make them look into something cool.
It's definitely a good idea.
Yep.
Leave them there, buy the piece of property, drag your historical building down there and use it for your museum. Put 2 or 3 railroad cars on there and turn them into restaurants, and you've got everything taken care of.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
good idea.
Good idea.
Sounds sensible to me.
It's a lot more sense than lifting it up and putting it on Main Street, I
On Main
think.
Street,
And you've got the open spot that belongs to the town to put in your welcome center.
Yeah.
That's great.
At one time, I heard the discussion quickly about burying the electrical lines
Yeah.
on Main Street.
Yes.
Why I don't think that's such a good idea for one reason. Because back in 1988, I tried to get Richard Rosen here, by the way.
All right. Yes.
Okay, the whole Main Street was dug up, and that was the year the businesses, there was no business at all. Some business disappeared. Could you imagine, the whole Main Street was dug up, sewer and water. And the trucks are going up Tammany Street, going across Franklin, and coming down by the mill. They couldn't go through there. And I remember having walking on a plank to get us to some businesses. That was a lost business. I mean, if you're going to do that, they didn't think, well, actually one person did think about burying lines. Her name was Betty Thurston. She was on some committee, and she brought that up. And, but of course, it was an expense, I understand, but if they ever entertain that, I would think they could do it, say down back of the buildings or something like that. Don't dig up Main Street again. Jeez.
What a difference it makes when you go through I was over in Burlington, I went through a neighborhood and I thought, what's different about this neighborhood? There were no
Yeah.
power lines
I
there.
think that's good too, yeah.
Well, Ellsworth
They had-
Castine did it.
did, yeah.
I mean, there's an expense,
Yes, it
but we save money. But I mean, you bring up a valid point. You know, we've got Main Street full now.
Yeah.
And if you shut off the access to the street, but I think these would go through the sidewalk. So and you could do it in sections, I would think. I mean, I think there's a way we could make it work.
I think technology is there. They could do it a lot like they do with the gas.
Boring.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll call it a meeting.
I think that's
Good
good.
start.
Yeah, it's a good start.
He's got
We can do another workshop next month.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have a meeting next Wednesday. It's
Yes.
already been on the calendar. The group representing the Bay Festival is not ready to attend. They've had a lot of meetings in regards to a building for them as well, so they're going to hold off.
Have you heard I've heard some feedback from a number of citizens who are questioning, and businesses questioning the value of the festival as it is currently. Just wondering if it's time for a relook, change, maybe a different type of festival. I don't know. If anybody else heard.
Yeah,
Any
and
different-
I think if you look at a different time of year, it would be more beneficial to the business community.
Last year, the statistics are that Larry Wall, with his ice cream dairy port, had a 367% increase for that period of time. The rest of the businesses on Main Street all seem to have recorded a negative.
Yeah.
Other than the bookstore, I think he recorded 125% of what he normally would have gotten on a weekend. The rest of the businesses did nothing.
Yeah, I think I talked to, I think Andy was one of the ones I talked to who got more out of, I think he got more out of the Maritime, not the Maritime, the art festival. Same thing with the Friars. They got hurt by the other festival. So I don't know, just
Yeah,
hear a little bit of.
They had surveys done. What they're going to be doing is they're having a debriefing session and going through things. I will tell you, I do know that this year, the state's bicentennial, I'm on that committee too, is going to be up this way, the 11th, 12th, and 13th, and tall ships are going to be coming to Bucksport. So the Bay Festival has agreed to change their date to coincide with the tall ships, and they're looking at changing it to a nautical, a bay, the Bay Festival, and it's all about things about the water. So they are looking at different approaches to enhance, because they've got the feedback, they have the survey results. They just haven't analyzed it enough yet to come forward to us. I don't want to waste the board's time if they're not ready. But they have analyzed it. They are looking at doing it with the bicentennial this year, and everything you said, you can't disagree with. This weather this year was miserable.
It was hot too this
Yeah.
year, but
But
that beside.
it sounds to me they, for the benefit of the businesses, they need to focus on how can we make this so people are now spending time on Main Street
Mhm.
and not just doing these one-day vendors
Yeah.
along the waterfront.
No, you're right, yeah. Well, yeah, and you got to figure, they've been talking about everything from taking it down from 3 days to 1 day, giving it a theme. Instead of having the vendors on the water side and you're seeing the back from the bridge, have them on one side of the walkway so you're seeing in. There's a lot of feedback, And you got to look at a lot of the businesses that struggled had competing businesses in the Bay Festival. I mean, they had a brew fest, and you got the brewers, the Friars, 500 feet away. You had
Who were asked to sponsor.
right. I mean, really, the only person who didn't have any competition is Larry Wall, because there's no ice cream vendors. So I mean, and really this year there was no food per se, and you had mini donuts, jumbo donuts, fried dough. There was no food of substance.
Pretzels sold big.
Pretzels, yeah.
So back to what you originally said. I think you were zeroing in. When will we have another workshop?
Yes, do you guys, we can schedule another workshop for next month, third Wednesday of the month, if that works for everybody?
You said next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday's a economic development meeting for our business. I know we, the marketing RFP
Mhm.
was one thing that wanted to be discussed.
Yep.
The one thing we took off was the Bay Festival won't be coming. And if there's any other ideas that you want on the agenda, you can relay it through Mark or myself. And
Does it have to be the third Wednesday? Or
Nope.
Any chance?
no, I was just throwing a date up,
How about the 23rd?
the 23rd.
I'll be
being
going.
or
I could do the 23rd.
22nd?
The 30th,
22nd?
but that doesn't matter.
You'll be gone the 20.
Second to the 30th.
Is there a different day of the week that works for you, Ron?
Pretty much any time works for me.
Is a Monday a bad day?
I-
21st?
I can.
You hear the, you're
Yeah, we
on
had the 21st.
21st? and-
21st works for me.
I say that, our flight's out of Boston on the 22nd, so we may be leaving on the 21st. And Gene's calling right now, so.
For the,
That's Sunday, what are you doing Sunday?
That's Sunday? Going out to California.
So what are you looking at, Rich, for a date?
Do you want to look at Monday the 21st?
I can do it.
For the 21st?
Yeah.
Rip out a deck.
Yeah, Tuesdays are tougher meetings because Main Street and the Chamber all have their meetings on
So the
Tuesdays.
21st.
21st.
Yeah.
We can do 5 if 6 doesn't work, or we can keep it at 6 if that works for everybody.
I mean, I can get out early if it works better for people at 5.
I can do either.
What works better for you?
5 works.
6.
5 works better for you?
1 hour
Either way.
is very- It's getting dark earlier.
I was gonna say the time changes pretty soon.
Yeah, it'll change times before then, so it will be dark.
Right,
Okay.
the fire
You
station
can-
years
Can't go
ago,
November.
right behind their
Oh,
house.
is that right? Oh, okay.
And then, mudslide.
I just want to change it earlier.
You can do 5 then. That would work.
Sure.
We're gonna do 5?
5 o'clock.
I will not be here next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Okay.
I won't either.
You won't either? We may not have a quorum. Do you want to push back that meeting? There's not even a council meeting that Thursday.
Okay.
All right, I'll put a cancellation on Wednesday's meeting.
It's a house.
I was supposed to close on my, I made reservations, I was supposed to close on my house in Florida.
Oh. You move it next to John Reed?
Just 5 houses down.
Yeah, so the next meeting will be Monday, the 21st at 5 p.m. And anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
And now I